Welcome to Honest Yoga. My name is Emma Jane, and today I am going to take you through just 30 minutes of slow flow for beginners. So this is ideal if this is your first time ever getting onto the mat, if you're going a little stir crazy and just need to move. I'll walk through postures, explain them, and I just want to encourage you that at any point, if you need to kind of set yourself down, give yourself a moment and do it. It is not a competition here. You're not trying to get that perfect pose, which, let's be honest, there is no perfect pose. So just move with what your body's telling you, listen in on what feels good, and enjoy the opportunity to disconnect from all those things that are probably floating around your mind. Let's start our practice just by lying down onto our mat or onto wherever you're able to practice. So lowering yourself down onto the mat. Roll those shoulders back, turn your palms towards the ceiling, and if you're able to, keep your knees bent, plant those feet down onto the floor, and maybe let the knees knock against one another. And perhaps this is the hardest part for a lot of you, is just to kind of switch off your mind. Maybe as you lie here, you're thinking of your afternoon plans, and going to the living room, staying in your home, whatever it is. But folks, just begin to focus in on that breath. Noticing your inhales, noticing your exhales. And perhaps as you're doing this, you're beginning to notice areas that just feel a little uncomfortable, a little tight, a little tense. I want to invite you, as you breathe in, to make a little bit of space in those areas that feel tight, that feel tense, and as you exhale, releasing that tightness, sinking down into your mat a little more. I want to encourage you to move out of that fight or flight response mode that we so often function in. And just come into a little bit of stillness. Maybe this is day number whatever of having your kids in the house or having someone else live with you, or maybe this is just you on your own for another day. And it's so easy to just feel overwhelmed in each one of those situations, but use this opportunity to just give yourself permission to feel a little of comfort, a little bit of peace in the solitude. And bring your hands onto your stomach. Let the thumbs touch one another, let the fingers touch one another, making just almost a little triangle shape. And as you inhale, feel your stomach rising up toward the ceiling. And as you exhale, open your mouth, pour the breath away. Feel the shoulders sink back as you do so, and just continue to follow this breath, inhaling and exhaling. Only taking that next breath when it feels absolutely necessary for you. Slowing everything down, and if you're a little like me, you like to have your eyes open all the time, let them fall closed. Let yourself just rest, at least in these breaths. Wonderful, folks. I want you to extend your arms towards the back of the room, pointing those fingers as if you're trying to clasp that back wall, and then walk your feet out. Point the toes, and notice how it feels as you stretch your body out long here, inhaling and exhaling, inviting that breath into the side body, creating some space in between your ribs. Whatever those things that are capturing your thoughts, folks, leave them at the door, slip them under your mat. You can always come back to them if you need them. But in these next few minutes, just be present with yourself. Begin to walk those feet back in, hug your knees in towards your chest. And just hug them as comfortably tight as you can. Maybe rotate those ankles to the left and to the right. Whatever feels good for you. If your hamstrings feel a little tight, it might just be tough to bring your knees close to your chest. Try and make sure your shoulders, your head are still resting on the floor. And then slowly allow yourself to pour over to that right side and push yourself up into a comfortable seat. Wonderful. Now cross those legs as you arrive here, but as you cross your legs, try and bring those ankles in line with one another instead of stacking your feet underneath the shins. So those ankles are in line with one another. You're going to plant down that left hand, and as you inhale, draw the right hand up past that side body over the shoulder and just opening up. Wherever it is comfortable to bring your gaze, that's where you're going to go. Inhaling and exhaling. So try and keep that steady breath throughout your practice. Notice that if you've been sitting on your computer for a number of hours, you've been sitting watching Netflix, the side body might just feel a little tight. I want you to bring that hand around front and just begin to make circles, inhaling and exhaling as you go. You can let your gaze follow that hand if it's good for your neck, but if not, just let your gaze rest somewhere that feels comfortable. And switch directions with those circles. And then keep your hand lifted up. And on that exhale, plant that right hand down. Inhale, drawing the left hand up and open. Keep it there for a moment. Notice if one side feels a little tighter than the other. That's fairly normal. And then begin to create those circles. Be as big and dramatic as you want. If you're someone who's had a shoulder injury in the past or is still recovering or just is generally tight, this might feel like your movement is a little more restricted. So just go with where it feels good, with where you're not pushing yourself to the point that it's uncomfortable and unbearable. And then switch directions with those circles. And then slowly plant that hand down. Inhale to reach both hands up high, gaze to follow. And as you exhale, bring your hands around, palms to the ceiling as you lean forward. Let's do that a few times through, following your own breath. Inhaling to reach up, exhaling to bring it around, palms to the ceiling. Folks, move with that breath of yours. If it's better to linger in a pose a little while longer, if it feels better to take an extra breath somewhere, do it. We're connecting with that breath that in the midst of chaos, it could be whatever type of chaos your life is in sometimes, we just forget the breath. So connect it here. As you exhale, bring your hands down to the ground. Make your way into a tabletop position. Bring the hands underneath the shoulders, knees underneath the hips. Give yourself a little moment. So as you flow, folks, get yourself comfortable. Don't hesitate to take a little break. And all we're going to do is inhale, reach that right leg out behind you. Toes pointing down, hips remaining level. And then reach that left hand out if it feels good for you. And just breathing steadily. If you're able to, bend that right leg, pushing your heel towards the ceiling. And if able, sweep that left arm around, grab hold of the foot, kicking it into the hand. Your heart's pulling forward, your gaze is towards the end of the mat. If you're not reaching there at the moment, it's no problem. Just keep that hand out and push the heel to the ceiling. Breathe wherever you have found yourself. And then slowly release the knee down. Release that left hand down, send your hips left and right. And you might find that you put a little too much pressure on that right wrist when you're here. So just lift it up, spin it around. And then inhale, left leg out. And right arm. Keeping the hips level, the breath steady. And then slowly sweep that right arm around as you bend the left leg. Kicking the foot into the hand, pulling the heart forward. You'll feel that right shoulder drawing back. And then slowly release that knee down. Send the hips left and right. Wonderful, folks. We're going to make our way into a into our gate pose. We're already in tabletop. But folks, inhale, drop the stomach, lift the gaze. And exhale, chin to chest, arch that back. Let's do that just 2 or 3 times before we move into our gate pose. Inhaling. and exhaling. Again, moving with where feels good. On that next exhale, draw your chin to your chest, arch that back, let your head hang heavy. And then come back to that neutral position. Folks, I want you to inhale, reach that right leg out behind you, and then as you exhale, step it to the side, toes facing towards me. And just begin to rock yourself back and forth over top of those hands, working into the wrists a little bit. Be kind to yourself as you're here. If it's a little too much, no need to go for it just as intensely. And maybe even as you're here, you're noticing that inner thigh is feeling very tight. So again, just be gentle with yourself, even if you need to walk that foot in, bend the knee. This is not about getting the perfect shape. It's about stretching and caring for your body in a way that works for you. And then just walk those hands back towards you. Bring your hands onto your hips. Wonderful. You're going to inhale, reach your hands up high, and just take a look towards that right leg. Make sure that your ankle's in line with your hip, not too far forward, not too far back. And slowly bring the right hand onto the right leg, and allow the left arm to pour over, opening up into that side body. Again, you can lift the gaze if it's good for you. Everyone's a little bit different. So this is a gate pose. And then slowly looping that left hand down onto the mat. Inhale the right hand up high. Feel as if you're stacking those shoulders on top of one another. Your heart is pulling forward, and try not to put too much pressure onto that left wrist. If you want to go a little deeper into this, extending that right hand towards the front of the room. Those fingertips can be reaching as far as you can bring it. Your palm either facing towards the floor or open to the side, whatever feels most comfortable. And then slowly bring the right hand high, left hand up. Inhale to reach up a little higher. And exhale, bring your hands back down underneath the shoulders, connecting with the ground. Planting that left hand to the floor. Inhale, draw the right hand to the ceiling. Again, stacking the shoulders. Taking a few breaths in this gentle little twist. And then you can return that hand down to the ground. Beautiful, folks. I want you to slowly bring that right foot all the way around over to the left side. I should walk forward a little bit. And bring your gaze towards that foot. And just breathing steadily here. And slowly bring the foot back behind you. Rock back and forth on those toes. Showing a little bit of love to your ankles, to your calf. And then just return it back in underneath the hips. Rock your hips side to side. Give yourself a little moment. And we're just going to move through that on the other side. So inhale, reaching that left leg out behind you, toes pointing down. And as you exhale, bring it down onto the floor, toes pointing toward me. Now one side might feel as if it's a little more in need of care than the other. So you'll begin to check into this right away. So rock yourself back and forth as you're here. Show some love to those little wrists of yours. And I often find when I first started yoga, I was just trying so desperately to get into a certain shape that my breath was just kind of all over the place. If you can get your breath right, it will just feel as if you're flowing a whole lot easier. So don't beat yourself up too much. We do that pretty well in everyday life anyway, sadly, don't we? So folks, walk those hands back towards you, bring your hands up onto your hips. Take a little look down towards that left foot. Make sure the ankle is in line with your hip. Inhale to reach your hands up high. And then as you exhale, bring that hand down onto the leg and allow that right hand to pour over. And if you feel as if your bicep is masking your face a little, draw the arm back, even bend it a little if you want. You want to make sure that your bicep is closer to your ear than over top of your face. Because I want to see your face, which I obviously can't do because you're on a camera or on your computer. And then slowly looping that right hand around, setting it down onto the ground. Inhale the left hand to the ceiling. Those shoulders are stacked, you're opening up. Try not to put that whole pressure of your body onto that right wrist. And then if you want to go deeper, extending that left arm. Make sure there's even amount of pressure on that left foot as well. And then slowly bring it back, folks. Inhale, reach both hands to the ceiling. And exhale, planting them down back in underneath the shoulders. Beautiful. Planting that right hand down. Inhale, draw the left hand up. Let the gaze follow if it's good for you. Breathing steadily. And then planting that hand down to the ground. Wonderful. I want you to pick up that heel, drawing the left foot all the way around to the right side. Let your foot set down, let your gaze set onto that foot. And then slowly bring it around behind you. Bring your toes to the ground, rock yourself back and forth. Hopefully your leg is a little more extended than mine just because I'll be hitting my wall. And then bring that knee back in underneath the hip. Wonderful, folks. Send your hips left and right. Give yourself a little moment. We're going to make our way into a downward facing dog. If you're not familiar with this, you can take a little look up here. If you are familiar, crack on, get yourself into that posture. So you're going to tuck your toes here, folks, slowly peeling your hips towards the ceiling. Your fingers are spread wide as you can. Let me grab my little AirPod again. So I want you to push your hips high here, folks. You want to make sure that your back is flat and your legs don't have to be completely straight. They don't have to be kind of looking amazing with your heels touching the ground. Bend the knees as much as you need so that your back is getting the support that it needs. Take a little look at those hands and spread the fingers wide. If this is your first time in this posture, don't worry if it feels a little overwhelming. You might get to a point in your practice where this feels like a little relaxing. And then take a few breaths here, inhaling and exhaling. And folks, slowly bring those knees wide onto the mat. Bring your toes together and allow your hips to slowly sink back into a child's pose. This is that relaxation. This is a pose that you go towards when you want a little bit of space. Now, if you sink back here and your hips do not, or your bottom doesn't touch your heels, you're more than welcome to kind of be lifted slightly. You can maybe bring your hands underneath your forehead. Even if you have a pillow, you can. Or if you want, you can extend those fingertips towards the edge or the end of the mat. And just breathe steadily. Notice as you invite the breath in, that upper back begins to open up, especially if your hands are reaching forward. And then folks, slowly peel yourself up into a tabletop. Bring the knees back in underneath your hips. Make your way into that downward facing dog once again. Not standing too long here, but focusing on your back being comfortably flat. Those knees can be bent as long as your hips are pushing high, that back is supported. And then each one of us, I want you to slowly bend the knees, walk your way to the top of your mat, as many little steps as you are able to fit in. Once you reach the top of your mat, bring your hands to your shins, flatten that back of yours. So you want to feel as if you're pushing your tailbone to the back of the room, the crown of your head to the front of the room. Your gaze is going to be at the end of your mat, and if that's a little too much on those knees of yours, bend them, support yourself. And on that next exhale, bend your knees, let your chest drape over top of your thighs, your head to hang heavy. Maybe you want to grab opposite elbow as you're here. If you want to work into those hamstrings a little bit more, you can bring your hands around the back of your calves, grab hold of the shins, and slowly invite yourself down into that forward fold. If you have not moved in a few days, or if you've done lots of squatting or something, this might feel quite tight, but it's okay. You're just caring for yourself. These things take time. And bring yourself back to center, roll yourself to standing as slowly as that body can move, vertebra by vertebra, inviting yourself up. Rotate the shoulders back, turn your palms to the front of the room, and let's just take a deep breath in together, inhaling through the nose, and exhale. And again, folks, resisting any urges to tie your hair, to fix your clothes, which I do all the time, just breathing in and letting go. And again, inhale and release. Beautiful, folks. Let's make our way into just a gentle little balance before we begin to unwind from this practice, this little introductory practice. So folks, spread the toes wide as you're here, and you'll hear me say throughout our times together to bring your feet about hips width distance. If you are not familiar with what that is, what that means, make two little fists, bend your knees, and just pop them in between. That is usually hips width distance for most of us. That should be where you feel most supported. So then, folks, you're going to inhale, reach your hands up high. Exhale, bring your hands to your heart. I want you to slowly begin to shift your weight onto that right foot. And pick up that left foot and just bring it to the inside of the right. So if this is uncomfortable for you, if as you're here you feel a little uneasy, a little shaky, you can drop your toe down and just rest your heel against that inner calf. Or you can bring it up a little bit. Or if you're feeling all out sassy, you can bring that foot or that sole of your foot into the inner thigh. Let your knee drop out to the side. Make sure you're not putting too much pressure on one side or the other. If you have a wall beside you, grab hold of it. You can do this while you're brushing your teeth, while the kettle is boiling. No one will judge you, I promise. Bring your hands to heart center to find that balance. If you feel good, inhale to reach high. Bring that focus into somewhere that's not moving. And then slowly bring your hands down. Release that foot, stepping it wide. Send your hips left and right. Now, I always find when I do balancing poses that I'm just trying for dear life to stay upright a lot of the time. But what I want to encourage you to do is if you fall out of the posture, it's just yoga. It's just whatever day of the week you're practicing on, you can always bring yourself back to it. So come back to that hips width distance. Give yourself a little moment, shake it off however you're feeling. And begin to transition your weight onto that left foot, peeling the right foot up, and bring the sole of the foot to wherever you felt like it worked last time. I might encourage you not to put your foot on your knee. So we put lots of pressure on our knees anyway in everyday life, so popping it on the knee joint isn't going to be most helpful. Find that balance, bring your hands to heart center, push the palms against one another. If it feels good, inhale to reach your hands up high. Be impressed with yourself as you're here. I'm impressed with you anyway, so it's all good. And then slowly bring those hands down, release the foot, and rock yourself left and right. Beautiful. Bring yourself to the top of the mat if you're not already there. Let's flow through a little half salutation to make our way to the mat. Inhale, reaching your hands up high. Exhale to fold yourself forward. Bend the knees, support yourself as you need. Inhale, halfway lift, flatten that back of yours. And exhale, step into a plank position. If this is new to you, if plank doesn't feel like the most comfortable place, drop your knees down. It's totally fine. As you exhale, lower yourself down all the way to the mat. Untuck the toes. Inhale, peel your chest up. And exhale, lowering down. Beautiful. Tuck your toes. Make your way back into downward facing dog through that tabletop as you push your hips high, pedal the feet out. Beautiful, folks. Bring the knees down underneath the hips. Swing your feet to the left or to the right, sit down onto your bottom. Let's come into a forward fold. Just before we make our way to Shavasana, if you are not familiar with yoga in general, and Shavasana seems a little out there, a little crazy, it's just a chance to unwind. It is probably why most people do yoga, at least at the start, that relaxation, that disconnect. So folks, bring yourself into this Dandasana, draw your feet towards you. Internally rotate those thighs, give yourself a little moment. You're going to inhale, reach the hands up high, and as you exhale, pour forward and roll back. Let the hands glide up the mat, and inhale to reach up high, and exhale to fold it forward. I want you to move with your own breath. Do not worry about how this looks if you're doing this with someone who's staying with you in your house, doing this with your kids, whatever it might be. You can have a little natter. You can enjoy the movement, hinging from your hips as you pour forward and roll back. And on that next exhale, wherever your hands land onto those legs, those feet, those shins, that's where they're going to stay. You're going to relax your kneecaps as you're here. If that means that your hands are on your thighs, and this is as far as you're going, that's where I want you to stay. That is what works for your body. If it means you can walk them out a little longer, if you want to go into a full fold here, you can. I don't mind. One of the beautiful things about yoga is that you check in with how your body's feeling. So one day you might get that clean and crisp fold, and then the other day you're just hanging out back here, knowing what works for you. And slowly allow those hands to bring themselves back up the legs. Bring the soles of the feet together into butterfly or Baddha Konasana. Interlace those fingers around the tops of the toes. And inhale, pull your heart forward. As you exhale, bend the elbows, encouraging your heart to lean forward a little bit. You're hinging from the hip. As long as your bottom isn't lifting up as you're here, maybe those elbows want to nestle in to the inner thigh. Maybe you need to reconnect with your breath. And as you know, we're reaching the end of this little practice together. If you are already starting to think of your to-do list, haul it back in, folks. We are still here. We're still on the mat. There is no need to think of your to-do list. Think of whatever it is that draws your attention away. That will be there for us in a few moments. Slowly bring yourself back up. Use your hands to guide those knees back to center. And folks, lower yourself down onto your mat. Now, if you want to add a little eye mask or anything like that, you're welcome to. But I just want to ask you to lower yourself down. Hug your knees in. Maybe pedal those feet out a little, whatever feels good. Bring your chin to your chest. And then slowly plant your feet down onto the mat. I want you to pick up that left leg and just cross it over top of the right. Maybe bring your arms into a T shape or into a cactus shape, whatever works for you, whatever works for your space. Slowly let the knees fall over to the right side and bring your gaze to the left. Being present with the breath. Be encouraged by the work that you did for yourself by flowing through those 30 minutes. And then slowly bring it back to center and allow the knees to unravel or the legs to unravel. Beautiful. Pick up that right leg, cross it over top of the left. Slowly let those knees pour over to the left side, your gaze to the right. And then bring it back to center. Unravel the legs, hug the knees into your chest for one last time. If you want to bring yourself into a happy baby pose, bring your hands onto those big toes or your fingers to wrap around and just begin to pedal those legs out, moving with whatever feels good for you. I know some of my students, this is one of their favorite poses. And as you feel ready, hug those knees in for a last little moment. Extend those legs out long. And make your way into Shavasana. Now, if you're someone whose back is generally sore, keep the knees bent, keep that back a little closer, more supported by your mat. But if not, bring them out long, your feet as wide as the mat, letting them splay out to the side, those hips remaining open. Turn your palms toward the ceiling, roll your shoulders back. And folks, take a few breaths here before you let your mind just drift away for a moment or two. Relaxing your ankles, relaxing those knees, feeling your hips sink down into the mat, your torso, your arms, relaxing any tightness that is still in your wrists and your fingers, gently unraveling. Those shoulders melting back. And finally, any skin around your face, your jaw, your brow, those places that we hold on to tightness and tension, letting them go, letting them sink back, and being at peace. And might I encourage you that if your mind begins to wander, which it's so prone to do, bring it back to that inhale and bring it back to the exhale. Beginning to slowly invite just a little bit of attention back to that breath. Noticing the room that you're in and slowly moving your fingers, twinkling those toes. On that next inhale of yours, reaching your arms to the back of the room, draw your feet together, point the toes out long, feeling renewed, feeling refreshed. Inhale through the nose and exhale, pouring that breath out of the mouth. And again, inhaling and release. Beautiful, folks. Hug those knees into your chest. Keep your eyes closed as best as you can and pour over onto your right side. Taking a few extra moments of calm and of peace. Giving yourself the ability to just be present. And folks, slowly make your way up into a comfortable seat, crossing those legs as you arrive. Don't worry if you're moving a little slower. There's no need to rush into this little position. Bring your hands onto your knees. Keep the eyes closed. Roll the shoulders onto the back body. Let's finish our time together with 3 deep breaths. Inhaling through the nose and exhaling to release. Inhaling and letting go. And folks, that final breath, the final opportunity, inviting it in, gathering up all those little things that you don't need for your week, for your day, and as you exhale, let them go. Let those eyes gently open, bring your hands to your heart, and thank you for your practice today. It was wonderful to be with you, even virtually. Have a wonderful day. Thank you.